Oquendo-Suarez, and I have the privilege of walking you through Ecclesiastes, and we're going to actually begin on verse 12. And so just a couple of thoughts that I'd like for you to work through, or just kind of have front and center as we work through the scripture. When we think of this book, we think, wow, what a depressing book. But really, there is so much gold in this scripture. That wasn't the intention of the author here. His intention was to get us looking in the right direction, to give us the right perspective. Why are we aiming to do what we're trying to do? What's our goal, right? And he highlights that nothing else is more important than living a life fully sold out for Jesus, meaning it's all about who he is, what he's done, and everything that we should do, every goal, every ambition should be based on that truth, that Jesus is the center of it all. I live for Jesus. I fear him, I love him, and I follow his commandments. And that is where real fulfillment is found, where real happiness is found. And so what the author does is he shares his experience as a man that comes from much in reference to resources and wealth. He had title and status, right? And all of it did nothing in reference to really provide that fulfillment that he was looking for, right? Because we can only find that in God, because we were made by God for God. And so I think that if we take a step back and really think about why is the author taking time to share his experience with us, what is the real takeaway from this message? That you would be encouraged and that there is real wisdom here, right? So we're going to start on verse 12 and we'll work through the scripture together, and we'll stop on, I had 2 or 3 points that I felt were my key takeaways. And so I, the teacher, so he's going to basically begin by identifying himself. So I, the teacher, the king of Israel, I lived in Jerusalem. I devoted myself, right? So he gives you who he is. He's like, this is my title. This is my status. Then he's going to introduce us to his journey, like what he committed to in reference to, hey, I'm going to find this real joy and this real fulfillment in other places before I really look to God, right? And so he goes, I devoted myself to search for understanding and to explore by wisdom everything being done under heaven. I soon discovered that God has dealt a tragic existence to the human race. I observed everything going under the sun, and really it is all meaningless, like chasing the wind. He's making a point. All of the wealth, all of the status, all of the title, the resources, the people, all of those things are insignificant in comparison to who God is and living a life fully sold out for him, right? And he'll get there. You're going to see in future chapters, he'll get there where he tells you, this is my conclusion, right? What is wrong cannot be made right. What is missing cannot be recovered. And so what he's saying here is that we can't control anything, right? And so even in that, there are so many things that are out of our control. But, people of God, if we can look to God and know that the Lord, right, that he sits on the throne, that he still very much is in control, we can still be joyful in our circumstance, right? We can still feel the peace of God because we know he's with us and he's for us and he's still on the throne. So he rules, right? So even though this is a reality, we don't control everything. We worship and we serve the one that does. I said to myself, look, I am wiser than any of the kings who ruled in Jerusalem before me. I have greater wisdom and knowledge than any of them. So I set out to learn everything from wisdom to madness and folly. But I learned firsthand that pursuing all of this is like chasing the wind. The greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge, only increases sorrow. The point that he's making here is that he's not discouraging you from seeking out wisdom. He's saying that wisdom is not the answer, right? Because he's talking about a human wisdom. And in order for us to even be a little bit content, we have to bring in the godly wisdom, right? So we need an eternal perspective influencing the godly wisdom. We need them both taking part, right? And in partnership. And so he's like, the more that you know, the more questions that you have, and the more questions that you have with no answers. And so you're just like, oh my God, I know more now. And so I have more questions. But if we don't understand that there is an eternal aspect to this, right? We are with great sorrow, right? Because we are still puzzled, and it's like, where are the answers? And we have to kind of accept that there will be questions that we don't get answers to on this side of heaven. And that's okay, because we serve a God that we can trust. And at the end of the day, right, we know that we are going to spend eternity and with him. And that is where our peace comes from. So I hope that you're encouraged by this scripture. I'm excited to continue digging in with you. I know that there's a lot that we're going to learn from this time together. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that you have a blessed day. Bye.